तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्णा चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So, chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, um, the way that Prabhupada translates it is the contents of the Gita summarized, because in the Bhagavad Gita, the very powerful messages and summary messages are provided in chapter 2. In one sense, if you step back and look at the entire Bhagavad Gita, there's three main sections. There are 18 chapters, and if you divide 18 by 3, you get 6. So the first 6 chapters make up one section, the next 6 chapters make up the other section, and the final 6 chapters make up the last section. The first 3 chapters, according to our great teachers like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, explain that the first 6 chapters focus, not exclusively, but focus on Karma Yoga. The next 6 chapters, chapters 7 to 12, focus on Bhakti Yoga. And the last 6 chapters focus on Jnana Yoga. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that these middle 6 chapters, as you would keep the most valuable jewels in your house, not in your front yard, not in your backyard, but right in the middle of your house, in some secret closet. In that way, the most treasured part of the Bhagavad Gita is the middle 6 chapters that focuses on the priceless epitome of the yoga process, which is Bhakti Yoga, or the yoga of devotion. Now, in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, such a beautiful chapter. It's the second longest chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The longest chapter is chapter 18 with 78 verses. Chapter 2 has 72 verses. It's the second longest chapter. Krishna is beginning his most transcendental and sweet instructions to Arjuna. Because in chapter 1, we don't hear Krishna speaking much. The only thing Krishna says in chapter 1 is, "Here, Arjuna, look, your teachers, your cousins on the battlefield," purposefully, because he knows that'll trigger Arjuna to enter into what's known as Vishada or lamentation. And there Arjuna was in the middle of the battlefield, induced by Krishna to be confused. He's in a desperate, grief-stricken situation. He's confused. He gives all kinds of reasons why he needs to just like bolt out of that battlefield. He doesn't want to be fighting with those people on the other side. Oh my goodness, how's he ever gonna be happy? Trying to kill the very people who have taught him and taken care of him and nourished him. Shoo. He gives some very good ethical reasons of why he doesn't want to fight. Then opens up chapter 2. Chapter 2 is where Arjuna is feeling uh, lamentation, and he's asking Krishna in the very beginning, actually, just before that, he gives the last reason. There are 4 good reasons given in chapter 1, and the 5th good reason for not fighting, Arjuna says, I don't want to fight with my family members and with my cousins and with my teachers because I don't think it's the right thing to do. I'm undecided. I don't know whether I should do it or not. So that was the last reason, indecision. Indecision makes us want to pause and not take a step forward. Hesitation. In actuality, indecision or hesitation is a decision. And Arjuna made a decision by being undecided. In that confused state of mind, he breaks down and he tells Krishna, Karpanya dosho pahat swabhava. In that verse in text 7, it's the pivot of the Bhagavad Gita. It's where Arjuna moves from being a friend to Arjuna becoming a student of Krishna. So far, Krishna was chastising him like a friend. He's like, "What kind of impotent fool are you trying to leave the battlefield?" And now Arjuna has said, "I don't know, Krishna, what is right for me. I need your help. I need your support. I need your guidance. I can see only short-sighted vision. I only know what's good for me in the near future. I can't tell what's good for me in the long term. Shreyan. Yashreyasyan nishchitam bru. I don't know what is that most beneficial for me looking several years, several decades ahead. Krishna, you do. Shishyasteham. I'm taking shelter of you. Please instruct me. This, my dear friends, is the turning point of the Bhagavad Gita. Until now, Krishna did not say a word to Arjuna to instruct him. He just taunted him. But then, when Arjuna himself chose to take shelter of Krishna as a teacher, that's when Krishna opens up. It behooves everyone to consider the Arjuna like situation we have in our lives. We might face confusion and stresses and difficult circumstances, not knowing where to take left or right turns, but to find someone who is wise like Krishna, who is insightful like Krishna, who has this depth of wisdom and knowledge to be able to offer that kind of guidance, like Arjuna did. It's probably one of the most powerful lessons in chapter 2 is this pivot between trying to make up how we should live our life by our own mind versus taking shelter of a qualified teacher. So Krishna sees this mood of Arjuna, smiles. The first smile of Krishna in the entire Bhagavad Gita is in the beginning of chapter 2. And when Krishna smiles, he's smiling because of Arjuna's mood. And then he takes off his gloves and gives it to Arjuna and starts to instruct him. And he discusses with Arjuna that, hey, Arjuna, you are lamenting for that which should not be lamented. That's the first words that come from Krishna in the position of a teacher. He says, Asochananvashotastam pragyavadam shubhashase. That you think you're speaking learned words, but you're actually a fool. Because those who are learned do not lament for the living or the dead. Whoa, that's like a pretty strong way to start. And then Krishna goes on to explain, and I'll show some slides here because I've presented summaries of chapter 2 before in different audiences. Um, Hopefully you're able to see my screen. Yes?
Yeah, Prabhu, we can see the screen.
Okay, so this is chapter 2 at a glance. The first section, which I kind of went into a little depth with, is Arjuna's indecision and surrender, taking us from text 2 to text 10. Then text 11 through text 30, Krishna presents the difference between the soul and the body, also known as Sankhya Yoga. Following that, there are a few verses where Krishna drops down from the platform of transcendence, where Krishna now starts to explain Bhagavad Gita from the perspective of Varnashrama Dharma, or the Dharma of social classification. Arjuna was a warrior, and Krishna makes the argument in this little section from 31 to 37. He makes the argument that Arjuna, you're a Kshatriya, and you're a warrior, and if you don't fight, you're not doing your duty. And in fact, if you don't follow through with your duty, you'll end up in not a very good place. And for a Kshatriya like you, it's worse to get shame by insults of others, ridiculing you for not doing your duty, versus losing your own life in the battlefield. So he takes that position. Krishna takes that position or makes that argument against Arjuna. And then text 38 to 53, Krishna presents Buddhi Yoga and it urges Arjuna to fight. And then finally, the last section is where Arjuna asks a very, very pertinent question that I have referenced so many times when questions have come to me, because Arjuna asks a question: how do I know who is Sthita Pragya? Who is that person who has steady consciousness? How do I know that? This is a very important question for ourselves to assess: do I have steady consciousness? And it's also very important to understand who is a person, what are the symptoms of a person who has steady consciousness, onto whom I can seek guidance. So if you see this last part of chapter 2, asking the question, Sthita Pragya, who has steady consciousness, ties to the first part of chapter 2, where Arjuna is taking shelter of Krishna. Because he says, Krishna, you actually have steady consciousness from whom I can learn and to know what's good for me. So he's asking Sthita Pragya, who is that person? What is his language? How does it speak? How does he walk? And that's the rest of the chapter from text 55 to 72. Krishna answers Arjuna's question, where he gives a qualification of a person who's very advanced. Very simply put, chapter 2 has two main sections. The first section on the left is Sankhya Yoga. The way I like to think about it is if you were to put the world on pause, I don't know how many of you seen the Matrix movie, where it came out in 1999, and now with artificial intelligence has become more relevant in our lives. The Matrix, Keanu Reeves and those folks. So the way they were trying to explain the Matrix to Keanu Reeves is they showed the world moving and then they hit pause button, everything stops. And they try to explain, okay, this is the Matrix. It's actually not real. It's a projection of reality by machines. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna is doing in the beginning of chapter 2, the first half of chapter 2, is he's putting the world on pause. Everything stops. And he's analyzing what's the difference between the body and the soul. And who you are is different than the body. So he makes a very clear and repeated instructions around the difference between the body and the soul. The body dies, the soul doesn't die. The body keeps changing, the soul doesn't change, etc., etc., etc. So that's Sankhya Yoga. And now, when you press play with that spiritual conception, what happens? That's Buddhi Yoga. That's the second half of chapter 2. How to act in this world with Buddhi, with spiritual intelligence that was explained in the first half of chapter 2. And when you press play, when we interact with our families, we interact with the workplace, we interact with our school, we interact with the government, whatever our interactions with, when we hit the play button, what's our consciousness? How steady is our mind? With what heart are we bringing to the world? How are we influencing society? That's the second half of chapter 2. So I'll pause there because there's so much to say about chapter 2, but at least I gave a little bit of a stepping back, think about chapter 2. My deck on the summary of chapter 2 has 44 slides. We went through 7. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, anyone would like to raise a comment or question? I'd like to hear your reflections from chapter 2. What did you particularly appreciate?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, bro. I just wanted to like discuss little more about the aspect of Sankhya Yoga and about Buddhi Yoga, what you mentioned. Like Sankhya Yoga is like the analytical study, and Buddhi Yoga is like action with spiritual intelligence.
Mm.
So, Krishna does compare between the two. I think it's in the beginning of third chapter where like Krishna compares between the two. So, like, how do we understand that in practical life? Is it like they are seen to be interrelated in the sense that we have to have an analytical study to be able to act with intelligence? But also, like, I think one sense Prabhupada also explains it is like a philosophical understanding where one just like goes into deep philosophical study and just stays there. But Buddhi Yoga is better because there one is actually engaging one's senses, so it's easier to purify that way. So, what is a wholesome understanding?
Well, Krishna says, right, that it's erroneous to think that they're two separate paths. Krishna says in third chapter that they're actually the same path. One is to, the way Prabhupada explains, is one is to find the root, that's Sankhya Yoga, and Buddhi Yoga is to water the root. Now, if you're very good at watering the root without necessarily knowing where the root is, you just kind of throw water all over the place. That can be effective if you somehow are lucky to pour water on the root, right?
Yeah.
But Buddhi Yoga, to properly perform Buddhi Yoga, it's important to know what is the root that you want to water. And for that, Sankhya Yoga is helpful. Sankhya Yoga gives you perspective, the difference between the self, the body, material nature, time, the Supreme Lord. And then water the root is where I direct my emotions, I direct my sense of well being, I direct my sense of self worth onto my relationship with God, with Krishna. That's Buddhi Yoga.
So I think Arjuna's confusion there was probably he misunderstood Buddhi Yogas to be same like uh to be like refraining from action. I think because Krishna did mention something about keeping work away or like staying away from abominable action. So somehow that
That's
came
also
across.
there, yes.
Yeah.
And then also Sankhya Yoga, analytical study or jnana. When jnana is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, Arjuna takes that to mean, oh, get out of the battlefield, let me go study. No. So Krishna is saying, no. Jnana is an underlying conception that you hold with which you engage with the world in Buddhi Yoga. So there was a confusion there. And it's a common confusion.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I just wanted to say thank you for your amazing insights on chapter two. I think it definitely shed a new light on like some of the things that we've read about. And one of the things that I think you brought up, which I thought was really interesting, was the idea of indecisiveness being an action in and of
Mm.
itself. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on that because I think indecisiveness is such a major problem, and I'm not sure in what light to see indecisiveness. Like, is it actually a problem, or is it? Can we use like indecisiveness as a lens to make like better decisions, or how can we overcome indecisiveness in general?
Yeah, good question. The, I'll take an indecisiveness in the context of spirituality. Of course, indecisiveness could be in anything. For example, I might go to a restaurant and wonder whether I should have the pizza or the burger, right? I mean, that's like the basics of indecisiveness. Perhaps,
Yeah, I meant indecisiveness in the context of spirituality for sure.
okay, so yeah, I'll go there. It could also mean indecisiveness. For example, perhaps a more grave example would be, should I marry this person or the other person, or both of them, right? So there may be different flavors of indecisiveness. Should I study this um, subject or the other subject? Uh, should I take an Uber taxi or Lyft taxi? And in the context of spirituality, at a very fundamental level, is should I be an atheist or should I be a theist? And so those that don't make a decision are agnostics, and they claim themselves to be agnostic. Frankly speaking, it's a more honest position than an atheist, because an atheist says, there is no God. For sure, there's no God. An agnostic is, I really don't know. That's the more honest position, because with our senses and our limited intelligence, it's very difficult to reach the conclusion that there is no God. We don't even know how this universe came about. We don't even understand the Big Bang. We don't know if the multi-universe theory exists. We don't even understand why gravitational force doesn't work at a microscopic level. And that's when quantum physics kicks in. We don't understand why these different theories only work in a certain realm of context. So there's so much we don't understand that to say that there is no God as an atheist is not honest. What's more honest is agnosticism. I don't know if there is God. However, by the agnostic process, we're being indecisive. And guess what? Time is ticking. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. And I'm just being agnostic. So let's say time is ticking, I come to the end of my life and I'm still agnostic and I've not maybe pursued a spiritual purpose. I have just sat in the conveyor belt of expectations of society. Do your education, get a job, earn your wealth, save for your 401k, get married, buy 3 cars, all of those things that society expects us to do. We just kind of do it because that's what everybody does. We're being indecisive about what we want to actually do with our lives. So what's really meant for purpose of my life. So we remain indecisive. And the end of the life comes and like, oh, darn it. I should have done this. I should have done that. There's such deep regret that I missed out on what's really truly important to me and why I should be happy or how I can be happy. So I missed out on that because I was indecisive. Because I stayed agnostic. I didn't pick strong theism or I didn't pick strong atheism. One time there was a story of Prabhupada that, you know, they asked Prabhupada, who was the author of the book, what if at the end of life you you realize that there is no Krishna? You're going to die and you realize there's no Krishna. Prabhupada said, well, I'm having a happy life now, just practicing devotional service. Eating prasadam, chanting and dancing is very nice, very beautiful. Bhakti yoga is very joyful. Susukham kartumavayam means joyfully perform. And then Prabhupada turned to him and he said, and what if you, at the end of your life, you realize there is Krishna? Then what happens? So that's only one piece of your question. There's more. More. It's like how do we overcome indecisiveness was also part of your question. One of the, I guess, very powerful ways to overcome indecisiveness is to have a relationship with a coach in your life or a teacher or a spiritual guide who can help get you unstuck because Arjuna was stuck. He was undecisive. But because he had the teacher in Krishna and he trusted Krishna, that's the key point. He trusted Krishna. And because he trusted Krishna, when Krishna's words came out, and Krishna at the end of the Bhagavad Gita said, I can repeat the whole thing if you want, and you, yate chasi tata kuru, whatever you want to do, you can do. Arjuna's response was, Krishna, nashna moha smriti, my illusion is now gone. I'm ready to do as you have said. So the indecisiveness vaporized because of the direction and indication and guidance from Krishna, and because of that trusting relationship and the beautiful guiding words of Krishna, he was able to move forward with no hesitation. Even after, think about it, even after his son Abhimanyu was killed in the battlefield, Arjuna did not give up fighting. He kept going because he had Krishna's support and guidance. So it's the most powerful way to not be indecisive is to have someone's words that we're holding on to with faith and trust that we can move forward. Does that help?
Yes, Prabhu. I think that clarified a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you know. Okay.
Prabhu, I have a question. Thanks for the explaining the second chapter so beautifully. I like to extract the core or the knowledge of Gita in my own life, and I try to learn something that I can apply in my own life. So I have a 2 year, 1.5 year old daughter. I want to. I always think, how should I guide my daughter? How should I bring her up, like how should I guide her daily in my daily
Sure.
life? So if I think of is as a Krishna and Arjuna relationship, like a father daughter relationship, so I want the best thing for my daughter in her life. So but sometimes the other part, the receiving end, sometimes they're very adamant. They don't want to listen, like as a daughter or the son when they're young. My daughter is very too young for that matter, but I'm talking about like at some age when the daughter or son go up to a certain age, they think like they're the right, they're right, they can't avoid the father or mother's parents instruction. So if the receiving end is very adamant, then how should I guide him or her?
It's a big question, and it's a big topic. Parenting in general is a very big topic. I'm sorry, who was speaking? Was
I'm
Sujan?
Sujan,
Oh,
yeah.
Sujan. Okay. Yeah, that's a very big topic. My wife and I do a lot of courses on parenting that you may want to avail yourself of on this topic. But very simply put, Prabhupada explained to us in our Vedic model, up to the age of 5, you only give love. From 5 to 15, certainly you can discipline. From 15 onwards, it's only friendship with the child. So depending on the age of the child and the maturity level of the child, we have to learn to adjust our interactions with the children. And the best way to influence them is through our own example. How we live our lives. If we see our children being a certain way, unclean, for example, it'd be important to look in our own lives of how unclean we might be or how clean we might be. If we might see some adamant nature in our children, then the question that I would encourage is, okay, am I adamant in my relationships with others? Generally, we have some degree of influence over the children, and they tend to follow in the footsteps of their parents. Another factor is in the teenage years, starting from 12 years old onwards, it is very common that children become a little rebellious. They're starting to explore their individuality, their autonomy. It's very natural to not want to listen to parents. At that age, that tender age of 12 through 18, it is common that teenagers will seek more guidance from their friends or the internet or ChatGPT than they will from their parents. The parents are not cool anymore. Parents have been teaching them till, for the last 12 years, 13 years. Now they want to explore, they want to like their world is opening up. So it's for the parent the most important thing to look into, and I'll sort of end with this because it's a very big topic. The most important thing to look into is what is the long-term strategy, Shreyas, as we were talking earlier today. What is the long-term strategy in dealing with my child so that that child will want to come to me in their time of difficulty? That's my goal. So having that long-term vision and making sure my interactions with my children are based on that long-term vision, it'll guide my day-to-day irritations of their uh, adamancy, so to speak.
Thanks a lot, Prabhu. Yeah, I
Yeah,
got your long-term vision. So we should guide our children in such a way so that they can be find a very they can trust us in their difficult time.
that's the most important thing. You
Yeah,
want to,
yeah. So I just want a simple comment from you. So nowadays people talk about parenting. Some people say that like we should not be very hard to our children. We should be a friend. We should befriend them and be soft, like when we're talking and taking care of them. But back in our days, our parents were very disciplined, like used to very hard to us. So I think in some senses those were useful for us, because if they were not like that, I might not be in this place right now. I might have been diverted from my original goal. So what do you think? Like, is it good to be harsh on children, like in some times, or we should be always soft to our children?
it's a very big topic. It's the answer I would say it depends. The Vedas describe that one who is in a superior position, Vajrad api kathora kusum api kamala, that one who is in a teacher position or parent position should be hard as a thunderbolt and soft as a rose simultaneously. Now, which should I be in what circumstance? That, my dear friend, takes intelligence, spiritual intelligence, which is not cheap.
Thank you,
Okay.
Prabhu.
All right.
Yeah.
I know time is, and I also have to drop for a call that I'm late for, but thank you all very much for your kind association. Rishi, you
Hare-
want to close it?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for making time for us time and again, and coming and speaking with all of us, patiently answering all of our questions, giving us newer and fresher perspectives as we are trying to study the Bhagavad Gita regularly. I want to thank you wholeheartedly for your time every time you join. It just encourages each one of us to study more and more deeper as we go through our readings. And thank you everyone who joined. I know we went a little over time today, but I hope we can see all of you all again tomorrow as well for a regular reading call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Thanks for having me. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.